She's credited with growing the DA structures in KwaZulu-Natal. Might I remind you, this is a province known for political intolerance and, in some extreme cases, assassinations. At the tender age of 32, she put up a brave fight against her senior, John Steenhuisen, challenging for the position of leader in the second biggest political party in South Africa. The Democratic Alliance has been Mbali Ntuli's second home for the past 15 years. But today, she says goodbye to her fellow Democrats. She joins me in studio now, and it's a bit difficult. I can see you holding back tears. It surely could not have been an easy decision to make.
Hi, no, it hasn't been. I think for a lot of us who dedicate our lives to politics, it's not just about the job, but it's about real passion.
Yeah.
And being in the DA and being a part of politics for the last 15 years has been a big part of my formative life. So it's not an easy decision that people just come to, but I think it's going to be the right one. But I think you just reading that made me feel a little bit emotional.
Yeah. Let's take you back to when you joined this party. You were just 19 years old, I believe. And at the time you joined, what were your hopes, your aspirations? Because at that time, the Democratic Alliance, I think the notion that it's a white party, it surely would not have been an easy decision for you to make, nor your family to accept.
Well, my family has always been fine, I think, with the way that I conduct myself. I think I'm quite a well-reasoned person. But certainly the excitement about the Democratic Alliance and just being in the political space as a young person was to try and affect the kind of change that, at least for me and my generation, we've been told would be possible since 1994. And as someone who was already quite aware that they wanted to be in the political space, it was very exciting. The DA for a long time was a formidable opposition, and I think they should be proud of that. And for a long time, they were the type of party that was very happy to hear the views of young people. And so I think my hopes were much like the hopes of most people, which was to be able to join something, to be able to make a change in South Africa. And I'm very proud of the work that I've been able to do within the party for the last 15 years.
Yeah. I don't want to make you cry again, but you've got to give us the reasons for why you did this.
I think it's been just a combination of some deep introspection and whether or not I think that political parties, and certainly the way my political party is structured at the moment, is able to tackle some of the problems that we see in South Africa. There's a rigidity to the political party system that I think doesn't allow any longer, because of the lack of imagination and innovation, for people who have out-of-the-box thinking, diverse views on how they want to do things. And I felt constrained. And I haven't just only complained about it. As you said, I tried to put my hand up to say that I'm not going to whine about what I think the issues are. Here's what I think we should do, and I'm putting myself and I'm availing myself for that. And that hasn't been successful, and that's fine, and that was 2 years ago. But I think for my own personal growth as a leader and wanting to really be able to tackle some issues that are happening that I see around me, it's become time to take another direction, I think. And so I'm looking forward to going back to different types of communities and working with them. And in a few weeks or maybe a month or so after I take a break, I'll be coming back to say exactly what that is. But I want to answer the question of how can ordinary South Africans who are fed up with the political party system, are fed up with not feeling that they have any kind of advocacy, agency around what happens in the country, tap into it. So I want to go and find that answer, and I want to be part of building that.
We're going to talk about that in a moment. I'm trained to listen with a critical ear, and your words are, you felt constrained in the Democratic Alliance. What is it that you think that that party should have been driving towards, but it is not? And is that something that is likely to hold it back from actually ascending to the union buildings one day?
Look, I think all the political parties in our country currently are very uninspiring in the way that they conduct themselves and the ways that they're putting possible solutions forward, which is why I'm not joining any other one. But in particular with the DA, I think it was so easy and therefore the taking to have been in a much better space than they have been now. And I think that the culture of not allowing the diversity of different views and just really the fragile egos of people who can't take maybe a difference of viewpoints has been probably the party's biggest Achilles heel. And then I think the lack of appetite to take some issues on forthrightly that are thrown back to them as a matter of introspection.
Fragile egos? Whose ego is too big to handle in the Democratic Alliance?
I mean, look, most politicians probably have some sort of ego. You need to be able to put your hand up and think you can lead people. But I don't want to mention people's names. I'd like to leave on a gracious note. But I think if anyone's really curious, I've been very forthright about saying that in the past. But there's no need for me to rehash all of that now. I
want to take you back to 2020, October 2020. That was the time that the decision was about to be made by Democratic Alliance members who were voting at that conference. You were contesting John Steenhuisen, as young as you were, 32, still are young. But these were the words you used, and you said, "I'm not prepared to let the project dissipate or disappear. It's very important. I want to know," and I'm sure South Africans want to know, what project were you referring to there, and what happens to that project now?
That project is the project of trying to bring about a South Africa that actually works for most of us. I think that the majority of people in South Africa would just like things to work. The cost of living is high, poverty, crime. There's so many issues that we're bombarded with on a daily basis. And not everybody has the privilege, and I call myself privileged in the sense, to be able to take a step back from their job and to spend some time thinking about how to go about trying to solve those issues. So for me, it's always been about a cause and about the project, and that project remains. And that's why I'm leaving what some would consider a relatively comfy job, because it would be disingenuous for me to just stay there knowing that there's so much more that I could be doing. And I feel energized. I was really sick last year from long COVID, but I think I'm back, and I'm raring to go because I want my kids to be able to live up or to grow up in a South Africa that's actually one that is viable. I'm terrified as a person who is probably part of the 5% about what's going to happen in South Africa. The stability is something that I don't think is good for our psyche. So I'm going to do whatever it takes to be able to try and build the structures, build the communities, help empower people using my own platforms and my own networks, I suppose, that I've amassed over the amount of time I've been in politics to try and help those people. And there's thousands of people in South Africa that do these things on a daily basis. They approach me all the time. And there's an inappropriateness, if you're in a political party sometimes, for being able to do some of those things because it might be seen as, doing it for votes or whatever. But I don't want to be constrained in that way. I want to be able to do it to my full ability.
All right, let's take a break. When we return, we are going to continue this conversation and ask the question, what are the future plans? She's already hinted what it is that she may be involved in a few months to come. And I might want to reveal something else that you may not have noticed. We continue the conversation in a moment. You're watching Newsfeed AM. We are in conversation with Mbali Ntuli. You will know her from the Democratic Alliance. But this morning, news breaking that she has decided to leave the second biggest political party in South Africa. So we're trying to get some answers. What is it that made her leave? And we continue now. But let's pick up on this one element before we talk about the future. A respected professor spoke recently, and I had the privilege of sitting in that meeting. And he made a very interesting observation about the ANC, and that is that it has alienated young professionals, much like what ZANU-PF has done in Zimbabwe, he said. And I wonder whether that could be the same situation in the Democratic Alliance. You are not the first to leave. You have Bongani Baloyi, who left recently. Musa Maimane is probably one of those that epitomizes that, including Lindiwe Mazibuko, by the way. What is it that is happening inside the Democratic Alliance that you may want to share with us that is not allowing for people like yourself to remain there?
Well, let me first say that, and some of those people are my personal friends, that I don't want to take anything away from their reasons for leaving. But certainly for me, it's about not feeling challenged and not feeling as I'm going to atrophy, because I don't find for myself personally the space. And look, that's for a variety of reasons. I'm not somebody who's a shrinking violet, so I've obviously played the villain in some people's stories, and that's fine. And those are the kind of things, I suppose, at some stage will limit you if certain people are also in charge of the party. But that's not really what I need to bemoan, because it's not about individuals, it's more about the organizational culture for me, and the conformity of how things must happen in a certain way all the time. And people might argue that you need that kind of rigidity. I think it's archaic in the 21st century, and I think that there's a lot more room for how you can organize people politically, specifically like the people you're speaking about now, young professionals. I think they're alienated from all parties. I don't think that anyone's particularly inspired by the political football that we see from any of the different parties. Whether it's young professionals, whether it's people that are not working, the South African political system is broken, and I think we need to reimagine what that can be. And that's what I want to spend some time doing.
You speak about the organizational culture. What is it about the DA that is, perhaps let's go straight to it, what is it about the DA that is alienating black leaders there? Just this morning I was listening to Gwen Gwenya, who was defending vociferously the position of the Democratic Alliance about why the current policies of BBEE need to be done away with. This is something that Mmusi Maimane, when he departed, was trying to instill in the party, was trying to get the DA to be a part of. And am I mistaken to think that that is what you spoke about when you said you don't want the project to dissipate?
So, again, I wouldn't presume to speak for all black people, and as from your own statement, there's black people who have different views on these things. But from my experience, what I find alienating, as I say, is the lack of the ability to take on differing views without having to ostracize people who might have them, and to not allow for that space. And that's certainly been my experience. I think when it comes to the issues of race in the particular organization, I would assume, because all organizations are a microcosm of South Africa and the history that we've had, that even here, where you work, there's probably those kinds of tensions and issues. So I don't think it's unique to the DA, but I do think that the DA's mistake is sometimes not confronting and talking about it forthrightly, because then it makes it seem as though it's a bigger elephant than it should be, whereas it's actually something that's happening in all South Africa. And you would think that a political party that says it wants to lead the society would be comfortable having those conversations. And I think for some people, that is a sticking point for the DA, both within and without. But if everyone had to leave their jobs in South Africa because there was racism that they saw or perceived by some people in an organization, very few people would be working. And certainly I've been in there as long as I have, not because everything's been great, but because I felt that I could maybe make a difference. But I don't think that I have the same feeling right now, and that's why I want to go in a different direction.
Let me push you a little bit. I'm
Okay.
going to get off
Oh,
it.
you weren't pushing me already?
You're a political leader in your own right. Is the country wrong by pursuing policies like BEE, affirmative action? Because some, in fact, your party argues very strongly that it is reverse racism.
I think that's a very simplistic view to take around reverse racism. I'm not even sure what that really means. I think that the intentions have always been good in terms of what those policies were meant to do. I think, as everyone has said ad nauseum, they haven't been implemented in the wrong way. But I also think that it's been so narrowly focused on just being about the creation or the selection of placements for jobs, whereas you could really extend that to be something about education. You could talk to companies and incentivize them in other ways to give back to communities that are predominantly black or predominantly disadvantaged, and that could still be seen as a form of affirmative action or broad-based economic empowerment. But what we've seen with our governing parties is that that's not really what they're interested in. They're not interested in actually even really helping those disadvantaged communities. They're interested in making sure that people are able to get money who are affiliated with them. And so on both sides of the coin, whether it's the governing party or opposition parties, they've made the focus so narrow that we end up just talking about the fact that people must get jobs when there aren't even jobs being created. There's so many other ways we could be trying to uplift previously disadvantaged communities, and I can assure you that nobody in South Afrika would have a problem with that if they could actually see it happening, and it wasn't just about the enrichment of people.
So, what's next for Mbali Ntuli?
Well, I'm definitely still going to be around, and like I say, it's going to be important for me to just take this small break from formal politics to objectively try and go into communities. I want to empower people. I want to put together social activists that are already doing a lot of change. If some of them want to, sort of learn about politics, I'll do that too. But I'm really focusing on, I think, things like food security, water, social development. I want to find these change makers. I want to help them. I want to give them money if that's what's going to make their projects bigger. There are people in our communities that are already leaders. There are moms that are doing incredible work. They need support. And I mean, not to take away the work of government and be parallel, but we also can't be waiting for, these people that seem to not have a clue. And if that means we start a revolution, then that's what we're going to do. And that's what I'm feeling energized about.
What you're reminding me of right now is almost a similar project that we saw back in 1983, the United Democratic Front. Going to the grassroots, trying to get people organized. The mission at the time of the UDF was to make the government of the apartheid regime at the time, it was to make that government ungovernable. What would your mission be, if I'm correct in assuming that this is a similar type of thing that you want to start?
I mean, what an honor to be compared to that kind of movement, and certainly they are, for me, the kind of architecture in terms of plans as to what we should be looking at. And that includes civil society organization, faith-based organizations, individuals, single-issue campaigners. It should be everyone. And I think the mission and the plan now would be to take over the country.
You have all these plans, but you're also a young mother. You have a little one that's running at home, and you'll forgive me for revealing this, but there is another one that seems to be coming through in the not-so-distant future. So that will be baby number 2. How are you going to find all this time?
And last baby, I think. Well, I think mine is a story that is similar to all working moms in South Africa. You just have to juggle and you have to balance it. But, I mean, what is the alternative? Just wait around until my children are old enough and then get into the fight? No, I think that there are so many women that have come before me that have fought far more difficult scenarios than the one that I'm going to be doing. That must always be the guiding light. And I'm so appreciative even of the women that I've worked with in the provincial legislature from the various parties, the ANC, the EFF, the IFP, and seeing the kind of struggles that they had to go through so that I, as the youngest member of the legislature, could even be there. So I'm very inspired, and I think that, if anything, having a new child on the way is probably more of a motivation than anything.
Look, I'm going to not make this easy for you. I'm going to drag those tears back out again. In a few moments from now, hopefully, or in the next hour, my team tells me that we are going to be speaking to Francois Rogers in KZN, and he's going to be reacting to the very decision you are making, your message to people like him that probably have helped you grow in this party.
And I actually sent them a message already. I'm so incredibly grateful for the 15 years that I've had with them. Francois in particular, we have a great camaraderie, as do I with many of my KZN colleagues. And I'm very saddened to leave them, but I love them very much, especially the KZN staff. And I'll still be seeing them around, so that will be great. But I think that I've had a really good run, and I'm proud of everything that we've all done together. But even with my colleagues from other parties, and to the people in your profession, the media in particular, I think that you have been exemplary in the work that you've done, and watching and learning a lot from the people in your trade has also been incredibly inspirational, considering the kind of stories that you have to break and the kind of places that you have to be in. So
thank you.
I feel great.
Thank you. Thank you. I can't not let you go. I can't let you go before I ask about the national leadership of the Democratic Alliance. Do you have a message for those that are steering this party right now?
I hope they do so out of hope and some kind of courage about changing the party and the country, rather than fear or wanting to maintain personal control of things. And I hope that they know when it is the right time to exit the stage in particular.
Is that a message for Helen Zille?
It's a message for anyone.
Mbali Ntuli, always a fighter.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for granting us this privilege of talking to you about your plans and the reasons for you wanting to leave this party. In fact, she has left the party as you're about to leave our studios now. Good luck.
Thank you.
For the future, and we wish you everything on the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mbali Ntuli, former leader of the Democratic Alliance. Now, I suspect that that is what we are going to be referring to her as for the foreseeable future, up until whatever it is that she is cooking comes to fruition.